Hello and welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
And we are here to give you this week's reading recommendations on New Comic Book Day.
Mm-hmm. Yay!
You know, maybe I should flash the date on there, although everybody's seeing it in the title of the film.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, whatever. So anyway, today is kind of like Halloween in July. Every single thing that I read today, Fritz, and all horror themed.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was dark and a lot of supernatural, a lot of murdery stuff. It's a weird week.
Yeah.
It seems like this should have been timed a few months later, but we'll take it because I like it.
No, yeah, it's been good, so I can't complain.
Yeah, well, and in that vein, I think everything that we picked this week was also horror themed. So let's start with what you've got.
Yeah, so... Well, Patrick's the one who's been mostly picking the Night Terror stuff.
I have. It's been surprisingly good.
Yeah, but in that vein, like, the new Night Terror Detective Comics #1 here, really good, really. And, like, it's especially interesting because, like, on the one hand, like, it's tying in with, like, all the, like, Night Terror stuff, like, all the, like, nightmare stuff happening to everyone. But it's also, if you have been reading Detective Comics, it coming off of, like, there's been, like, a kind of a side plot brewing that with Jim Gordon and this, like, weird, like, kid he just found hanging out in the ruins of Arkham called Sorrow, who, like, is kind of superhuman, but we're not really sure, like, what his deal is. And, like, but part of that is he can, like, sense when there's, like, these weird imbalances in the world. So, while this is going on, he's like, something's wrong. Something's really wrong here, Jim.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they go to investigate, and what they end up finding is this weird cult who's taking advantage of this, like, the kind of, like, the weird, like, fusing of the real world and the dream worlds right now to, like, summon these, like, I don't know how well you can see it on the cover here, but these Hellraiser Clive Barker looking dudes, like, they are, like, freaky deaky, and they, like, hey, we want to make Gotham a better place. Could you help us with that? And
well, they're chattering and
like, yeah, you ask guys that look like this to help you make a place better. Spoiler alert, it's not going to go well for anyone.
No.
And so the rest of this issue is Jim trying to figure out, like, okay, how do I, a normal guy who, without getting into too many details, has his own very weird problem going on here. Like, it's really creepy what's happening to his body without getting into detail. But yeah, he's having to try and stop this, and it's just like, he's very out of his depth. Like, he's like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. Like,
interesting.
Yeah, so it's, I don't know, it's one of those kind of horror tales where a lot of the horror comes from, like, this creeping sense of just, like, there's nothing you can do to stop it. Speaking of things you can't do to stop, the vent just turned itself back on. But no, it's really creepy. The art is just, like, super moody and uncomfortable. Like, what was his name again? Yeah, Frederici. He's really good at, like, having stuff look very realistic, which makes all the horror stuff even more uncomfortable because, like, you get, like, you see like someone's wrist snap, and it feels like you can.
It's visceral.
Yeah, it's so uncomfortable. I don't know. Like we've been saying, the Night Terror stuff has been, like, across the board, like, surprisingly good.
Yes.
And this is, like, no exception here. And I'm especially curious to see, like, how in any way this might carry over into, like, the main detective title afterwards. Yeah. Because, like, a lot of these Night Terror stuff, like, part of what's made them good is they're, like, these very, like, self-contained character exploration stuff. And this is definitely doing that too. But, like, because it's, like, taking such a specific little subplot of, like, the main series, I'm curious to see, like, how it's also going to tie into that as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And having read the main title this week, there is definitely a thread of, the waking world versus the nightmare world, cults, and Arkham. And all those pieces together, it's not like they haven't been done in different points in DC Comics, but the way that they're mixing it all together and the way that the creative teams are approaching the books that they're on is really, really a lot of fun. I was starting to read the Night Terrors book. I had spaced that the dead man was inhabiting Batman, and I was like, why is Batman such a moron in this book? Oh, yeah. Because he's Boston.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, and the main Night Terrors book was almost my pick, But we decided to go the route of a different publisher for each of our picks, and this book was also fantastic. So no qualms about choosing World Tree number 4. And this has been, I think this is now 3 out of 4 have been our picks.
So, yeah.
And when people who don't read comic books hear that you read comic books, and I'm sure that a lot of you get this as well, they kind of look at you like, oh, that's cute. You know, how nice for you to still love children's stories about people in tights with capes, you know, punching bad guys in the face, biff, boom, pow.
Which, to be fair, a decent chunk of the time, not entirely wrong.
Sure, and I would argue that even those stories are generally more nuanced and about bigger things than
the good ones, at least.
Yeah, for sure. This is not at all that.
No.
This is, and we've kind of said, like, yeah, this is one of those that you could easily see being adapted into a series if somebody's got the guts to go that far. Because it's very much grounded in the real world. And you could see something like this happening, although we have no idea what is working behind the scenes to be creating this stuff.
Yeah.
But essentially there is something past the internet that they are calling the undernet that corrupts people. And it appears to be maybe otherworldly. We're not entirely sure if that means that it's alien or metaphysical or what. You know, we're not sure. Is this a science fiction book? Is it a horror book? It's kind of all of the above right now. And so this issue takes us further into both the history, because this has happened once before, and we've got a group of survivors that put the stopper back in the genie bottle before, and they're trying to do it again, although it looks like they might be too late.
Yeah, it doesn't look great for anyone involved.
Yeah, so the plot advances here while we're getting some flashbacks and finding out more about the main crew of people who are around for now the second time. And some nasty stuff happens, and there are definitely creepy panels, and there's the old, you know, you're watching the scene in the foreground and kind of focusing on the dialogue and everything, and then you go, oh wait, somebody just walked past the window. Like that kind of, and it was creepy as I'm reading a static book, you know?
Well, like I saw a comment recently related to something, to actually another book by Tinian, Nice House on the Lake, which I think might have ended up on here a couple times for some issues. But a recent horror series he did at DC, the comment was like, this is going to make a great HBO series in a couple years. And like, one, yes, actually, very true. But two, part of what I do really like about this series and other work of his is that, like, yeah, like obviously I'd love to see like adaptations, but like he's so good at doing like horror on the comic page. And if you read comics, like, you understand, like, that's not actually as easy as you might think it would be.
No.
Like, you have to have such like good control of the pacing and layout that it's really hard to do. And the fact that he's this good at it speaks volumes.
Yeah, and I'm blanking on the artist's name, Fernando Blanco. The combination of what they're able to put together, because the art, and particularly people's faces, like, it's really well done, but it's got this kind of spooky, vacant kind of vibe, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's seems like they're off a little bit.
Yeah.
And particularly the creepy murder lady who's walking around with knives and guns, just offing people for, I don't know, she seems to have a plan, although it's very haphazard looking from our point of view. But yeah, everybody is just in. Not everybody's likable. A lot of the characters are just kind of jerks or gross people, you know? So it's, I don't know. It's just, yes, it's very nuanced, and it feels like you're watching a show late at night with the lights down, and you're just waiting for the next
because like another thing I really like, kind of going along your line of like how there's actually a lot of characters that are unlikable, a lot of that comes down to there's like such uncertainty with everything, like everything about like characters and their relationships to each other, there's just this like level of uncertainty. Like the main character in the previous issue was like, he's being asked like, what's your relationship with this lady? And, like, he can't really seem to give a real definitive answer. They're like, the nature of all this is like you were saying, like super murky, like what it, like everything's just super unclear, even like the things that like on a surface level should be like, oh, this is simple to explain.
Very gray area. Everything is hazy. And and a lot of the characters that we're seeing are just extremely traumatized and damaged from something that they experienced that they couldn't go to a therapist and talk about because nobody would believe them. They would get institutionalized. But it did really happen, and it's happening again. And get in on this book if you haven't already, and if you have picked up, the issues up until now, do not stop. It is amazing. Well, that brings us to our consensus pick. And this week we went with Incredible Hulk number 2. I was very, very excited about this creative team coming on the book. So much so that I was really starting to worry a few weeks ahead of issue number 1 that I was setting myself up to be let down. Not the case.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. Well, why don't you give us the basic rundown?
So the basic rundown. So for issue 1, we kind of get introduced like to our new big bads of the series. They're this like ancient group of monsters, and for whatever reason, we're not super clear exactly as to how yet, but like they view the Hulk as being like the only roadblock to their plans to. I'm not sure if they're trying to like dominate the world or like bring some. They got whatever it is. It's bad for people. Like
it seems like there's something that the creature behind the green door thing had some kind of turf war with them. They did not come out on the winning side. So now that whole thing kind of got resolved there, they see Hulk as the last part of that. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
And as a result, like as these like really ancient monsters, they've got a connection to all the other like freaky deaky guys in the Marvel universe. And they're basically just like, hey, it's open season on the Hulk. And because of that now, all the like normal like weirdness that might be causing problems to the Hulk has been amped up significantly. In this instance, a weird haunted town with like, we don't even really get to see like the monster at the like cause of this issue.
No.
And he's already like terrified. Just like the cult that's built up around him, like just his history that we get relayed. I mean, even like the name Brother Deep is just very unsettling.
Brother Deep is super cool. I like the whole. So he seems to have quite a while ago, back in olden times, pre-cars is kind of what I'm feeling.
Pre even like Europeans arriving on the continent.
Well, yes, So has been in this area of Appalachia.
I think
it's a former coal mining community, and so you're seeing kind of, it's not really a flashback, but I don't want to give too much away, but they're singing this creepy hymn. And the hymn starts out, and I thought like, I don't know that I've ever heard this hymn before. So it was written really well. It's not a real hymn.
No,
like, it is. It definitely turns and gets disturbing and ends up being about these creatures who are trapped inside a mountain and calling out to people is kind of the impression.
It's like, or maybe they are the mountain. Like it's like a running theme here is like the uncertainty, but like it's in a way that we're like it's very clearly intended. Like you're not supposed to feel comfortable with what the knowledge you have is.
The other, and then so we've got the Rick Jones sidekicky kind of person.
Charlie. I really like her. She's like
digging her vibe. It's very cool. And then Hulk is very mad at Banner. And kind of sticks it to him at a point in this issue. And I almost said episode, because this is another one of those where the writing and the art is so well done that it feels like you're watching something moving happening. And when I have that experience reading comic books or recollecting having read a comic book, that's when it really hits for me. And they're just crushing.
Speaking of the art, like the whole thing is like beautiful. Like Nick Klein, if you enjoyed his work on Thor and everything else he's done for Marvel, you're going to like this. In particular, there's a couple pages in here where he also like inks himself. Those like couple dream sequence pages, where it's like it looks really good. Like everything in here looks good, but like he brings a certain ethereal quality to it because it's a dream. That's like how you kind of do it a lot of the time, and like really just tells like this otherworldliness without like breaking from the art style in any hard way.
Super cool. Actually, that reminds me, in the back of World Tree here, because that got me thinking. There's a quick little preview for Call.
Oh.
And I just did the final order cutoff for this one, and it looks like there's some buzz. We had a number of people pre-order it already, and it looks really cool. It's the new Kelly Thompson.
Yeah, I was going to say Kelly Thompson, so it's probably going to be good.
Yeah, and that also does kind of, but it also does.
They just jump right into it.
Yeah, it's super cool. So, and there was another book that I read this week that had a fun dream sequence where
there's a lot of dream stuff going on, even if it's not Night Terrors related.
Ghost Rider this week too, and that had some funky stuff going on. That was really good. It's just it's Halloween in July. Right
the funny thing is, even if like my other pick was probably going to be Avengers, and that is also very horror themed.
Well, there you go. Well, get on down here and check it out for yourself. We love to talk to people about what they're reading and get your opinion. So if you can't make it down, leave your comments. We love seeing those as well. We'll be back next week. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff that literally every single YouTube channel has asked you for, ever. And we'll be back next week with more picks. This is the biggest, we were saying last night as we were putting it out, this is the biggest week that we've had in a long time.
Like yesterday I came back being like, oh, it must be like all ready, and then she's like, oh no, there's still diamond to go, and she's like looking at the table, she's like, oh boy.
Poor Michi, trial by fire. Talk about throwing her in. Yeah, so anyway, we'll be back next week, and thank you for joining.
Halloween in July, blah, Dracula. I should have waited till you weren't drinking, probably.
Oh, I'm always drinking. Oh. That's my secret.
Oh, can we do that here? Oh.